I was going to spend some good time making a cold open, but in honor of National Procrastination Week, I said, screw it. We're going to get into some things that are fun, including the outfield on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. We might not have spent a lot of time on the cold open, but we spent a good 30 minutes, it feels like, doing math before the show between Justin and I. We're going to do some baseball math. So if you like to correct people in math, here's your golden opportunity today. That's Justin. I am Jeff. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. And I also want to say, we got the Guardians covered, your team every day. That being said, let's talk about the outfield. The Cleveland Guardians they're having Tyler Freeman play out there. They're having Gabby Arias play out there. We know, that more and more the Oscar Gonzalez hype train is leaving the station full speed ahead. I saw Zach Meisel also quoting someone about Vladdy Sr. So that's going now. If he is an above average player, it's going to be disappointing. And I'm going to be sitting back going like, no, that's a great outcome. The hype train's a little too hot. A little too fast, I guess. But you got Gonzalez, you got Straw, you got Quinn, you got Brennan, you got Gabby Arias, you got Tyler Freeman, you got George Valera if his wrist doesn't fall off. You've got, it feels like so many names for a franchise who, since they returned, their greatest outfielder, since the year 2000, since I guess football returned, the greatest outfielder this team has produced is Luke Scott. Number 2 is Ryan Church. Number 3 is Stephen Kwan in terms of WAR. 4, I believe, is Tyler Naquin, who did take an MLC this past offseason. They have an embarrassment of riches all of a sudden. I think. Let me do some basic math before I kick it to Justin. So here's your chance to correct us. Justin did the research that the Guardians had about 2,000 plate appearances last year with their outfielders. So we're not going to get we're not going to guess that someone had like 531. We're just going to try to keep it at mostly bigger numbers. We're going to do some estimating here. So 2,000 plate appearances for both of us, it was kind of easy with Straw and Kwan both being around 600. The other thing is I was able to find data from 2020 that stated that 28% of innings pitched were by lefties. So if you look at it that way, of those 2,000 plate appearances, about 560 are against left-handed pitching. So that also can kind of come back around into some of our data. So I also wanted to throw that out there. I have now talked for the first 3 minutes. Justin, why don't you lead us off on your thoughts, and then I'll respond with where we massively disagree, like always.
Yeah. First of all, if you saw the Jeff's Open, he said the word math. You know that I was terrified if you were watching on YouTube that math is not my thing. And I'm the one who suggested doing this math. So clearly this is going to go well for me. So roughly 2,000 plate appearances for outfield. That doesn't include like outfielders who DH'd or played another position. This is strictly for when guys played the outfield. So, like, I'll just go back and tell you last year, Stephen Kwan had 638 plate appearances as an outfielder. I think he had a bunch of those, some of those as a DH. So I'd have to go back and look. Oh, no, Jeff, our math is bad. That is all that it's already ruined. This is for any position. It didn't just keep to the outfield. The math didn't math correctly here. Anyway, we can still do it this way. But we can still make it work DH wise. So we can still say these guys can move around. So This is 2,000 plate appearances by guys who were considered outfielders, not necessarily playing the outfield. I'd have to go and go a little bit deeper.
I think it's safe to stick with that overall. Cause it's like, Miles Straw and Stephen Kwan were about 600 each. And they were pretty much everyday players, but they didn't play every day. They did have a few days off in there.
Right.
But I think 2,000, when you just look at those two and extrapolate from there, it's logical. A third guy would be 1,800, and then you assume some guys having some off days, that those guys played in the 150s. So getting another 200 or so plate appearances over those like 20 missed games between the three of them is logical. So I think 2,000 is still logical, even though it is not exactly dead on.
Yeah. And, 9 guys played the outfield last year for Cleveland. So my math, and the reason we're doing this experiment too is
10 played out there, 9 got plate appearances that we found.
Yeah. Ernie Clement had some time in the outfield, and it doesn't look like he had a plate appearances as an outfielder last year. So the reason we're doing this experiment too is because I think all of the Roman Quinn talk that's been happening. This is why we're like, okay, let's sit down and break. How does the outfield shape up for Cleveland? How do you dole out playing time? Because as Jeff said, Stephen Kwan and Miles Straw are taking the bulkier bats in two positions, so right field's kind of open, and then you have whoever gives these two guys a day off, and factor into the playing time. So how does Cleveland map out their playing time this year? And this is how we would do it. And obviously, there's going to be injuries and things we don't account for. But this experiment came up because of all the Roman Quinn talk. And for the record, I still don't believe Quinn is going to make the roster. I just don't see how they make it fit. I mean, even if you put Morris and Hentges on the 60-day IL to start with, I don't know how you get a backup catcher and an outfielder. Plus, you need another reliever if those two guys go on the IL. So I don't see how that works unless they DFA Jason Bills, which they might. So I don't know. But the moves on those don't look like they're going to be easy. So let's just assume that Roman Quinn is not making the roster. Or you could assume Roman Quinn's making the roster. I don't know. But the reason we're doing this is to show how the outfield can pan out. So, yeah, I've got Quan at 600 plate appearances. Leading off, that's pretty easy to assume he's going to play most days. I actually bumped Miles Straw's plate appearances down to 450 because, remember, he spent most of last season, or I should say the first half of last season, as the leadoff hitter. So him hitting ninth every day should touch into those a little bit. And I think maybe they'll give him some days off, and maybe they'll split time for him as a defensive replacement, or he'll not play against some right-handers. So I got 450 for him, and I have 350 for Oscar Gonzalez. And again, that doesn't include necessarily him DHing and things like that. I also gave 350 to Will Brennan to kind of split those up. So that's another 700. And then after that, I've just got kind of some extras. Like they want Josh Naylor to be able to play some outfield. So I gave him 50 plate appearances in the outfield. If you want to have him spend the day in the outfield, I guess that's,
I think that's more chatter than belief.
Maybe,
I mean,
yeah.
He's not gonna. He shouldn't be playing against lefties, and then you're really gonna move him out there. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I just put 50 there just to have it, and I can even take that away because the thing is, you're just gonna need some backup. So I gave 50 to Richie Palacios because it seems like at some point he's gonna play if they don't move him, whether that's through injury or just making the bench or a call up or something. And then, 100 for George Valera. I don't know how he gets 100, but, maybe he does get 100 somehow, some way. And by the way, Cleveland did release an update on Saturday about his wrist. He has right wrist inflammation. Nothing more on that, but that was the wrist he had the surgery on. So nothing more on that. And then I just have an extras tab for, anybody else who comes up to play the outfield. And one of those tabs I also left open for Mike Capriz. So maybe somehow, some way Mike Capriz gets 100 outfield at bats. I don't know. But so 600 for Quan, 450 for Straw. I split 700 between Gonzalez and Brennan, between right field and DH or whatever. 50 for Palacios. And then there's 200 plate appearances up for grabs between Valera and somebody extra like Prees or Quinn or Naylor, I suppose. So that's how I got the 2,000. And I think that allows you to take advantage of both Brennan and Gonzalez on the roster without having to make any real additional moves.
So Quan at 600, Straw at 5, just figuring that they might, try to get him some more rests against some harder guys, stuff like that. So that gets you 1,100. So I still have another 900 to go. 400 to Gonzalez. Now, I think Gonzalez will also get a lot of time at DH because that's what I talked about with that idea that of these at-bats, about 560 of them will come against lefties. If you split that up amongst 3 positions, now I got to do even quicker math in my head. That's about 150 per outfielder. So, that means that maybe 150 extra at-bats instead of being in the outfield. Maybe he's the DH and Josh Bell is playing first. So I have him at 400 with the thought that you would do another 150 or so at the DH position. So right now I've got about 500 left. I've got 300 of, I'm going to say about 400 to Brennan in some form or another. I debated 350 or 400. I'll just go ahead and put the 4 on it for now. And then for me, I have 100 that I'm looking at, if they decide to play Gabby out there, because Tito has a history of playing infielders in the outfield. Long Ernie Clement, Mike Freeman, Michael Martinez. Those guys do pop up out there. I do think Micah Pries has a chance. I'm not going to bet on Valera right now just because of the health and everything else. But I made a statement last week about how I thought there was a pathway for Pries as kind of that guy who can come out and do a lot of things and be that player. But yeah, we're not dissimilar. But I think, at its core, it comes down to the expecting to get more than half of those at bats between Quinn and Straw, and then Gonzalez, and how much we're actually gonna, is he gonna be kind of moved around a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, you can give all of those to Quinn in left field and just have somebody back him up, whether that's Brennan or Gonzalez or Palacios or whoever is extra out there. And Straw, you're back. I think you can live with Brennan backing him up. He's played fine center in the minors, and they seem reluctant to want to put Quinn in center field. And I don't think they should put Palacios out there either. So, yeah, it just depends on who the extras are. I mean, this doesn't account for injuries and things like that. It depends on how things shake out. But, I mean, that's 700 plate appearances I've got between Gonzalez and Brennan. I think that's pretty good, and that should cover, right field, center field, and DH quite a bit for the season with having other guys they can shift around.
Speaking of things that are good, we're going to come back and talk about some of the rule change stuff that people have been discussing, as well as getting into maybe ways to replace Sam Hentges. First, let's talk about something that is fantastic, and that is Built Bar. I was tempted to make a fake trumpet sound, but decided it's the best for all of us if I don't do that. So right now at Built Bar, vanilla cream is back. 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar on that one. Additionally, this is a nice one for me. I always thought they did chocolate is one of the things they do well. And their double chocolate is a new and improved flavor. That is already one of my favorites. The double chocolate, 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar. And now it is a new and improved flavor. So that makes me even more tempted to do it. Brownie batter has always been a great one. Their puff is now gluten-free. And that one is 140-17 with 6 grams of sugar. Maybe it doesn't matter to you. It does matter to me. They're always doing new flavors, new things to check out over at BuiltBar.com. The promo code is LOCK15. Or if you don't want to wait, you don't want to place an order, you can go today to Walmart and get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, the new and improved one, or coconut puffs. Or you can go to Sam's Club and get a 13-box flavor with hit favorites, brownie batter, and churro. I'm a big fan of the churro. So those, I believe, are in the pharmacy section if you want to check those out, or go to BuiltBar.com and use that promo code Locked On.
All right, so JJ Cooper had this great stat over the weekend or before that. We just didn't have time to get to it last week, and we didn't want to put it on our extra show, which it sounds like a lot of you enjoyed our extra show last weekend. Thank you for A, demanding that, and B, enjoying it. For all your comments on that, we'll continue to do that as long as we have extra topics to get to, and there's a demand for it. So the stat, though, started on March 2nd, and he updated it March 3rd. So through spring training games on March 3rd, it should be March 2nd. I don't think all the games have been played by this date. There have been a little over 1 stolen base attempt per game this year in spring training, and that's about 1 stolen base per game. So 1.19, and then 0.98 per game, and then 2.21 caught per game, which is 82%. That the highest in-season success rate is ever in the major leagues is 75%. That was 2021. The last time Major League Baseball averaged 1 stolen base attempt a game was back in 99. So teams are running a lot in spring training, and here's what he had through 5 games. So far, teams are averaging 1.16 steals per game in spring training, or attempts, and they're successful almost all the time. So it's 80% when he put the stat out. In 2022 spring training, Jeff, it was 0.77 stolen base attempts per game. So we're talking about, a little over 1 to under 1 per game. And the success rate was 72.9%. So this is a pretty big jump. Again, 1.16 attempts per game in spring training versus 0.77 attempts it broke down to the year before. So teams are running a lot in spring training. And I imagine this is due to some of the success rate is probably going to come down when teams get more used to rules, I suppose, and they figure out how to go about this. But teams are definitely running more. in spring training. Like they're going to try this. So I'd imagine the stolen base attempt rate is going to be pretty high in the regular season. So let's give a hot take here. Let's go over under with the new rules this year and the stolen base rate going up. José Ramírez, 30-30 season, yes or no?
No. And only because I think they might have him hold up a bit at the start of the year. Just with like the risk of sliding and the thumb. He might not have quite as many green lights because the thought might be it just might be a little bit riskier. So I'll say no, just because I think there's still some concern with that thumb. He wanted to be in the World Baseball Classic and can't be. So I think...
Yeah. I mean, look, he stole 20 a year ago. He attempted 27. He was 20 of 27. Pretty good rate. So he almost ran 30 times last year, and he only missed 5 games. And if he's healthy this year and he plays the same amount of games, I think he will run 35 times. His previous high is 40 attempts. That was back in 2018. He ran 33 times in 2021. I'm going to say he's going to go 30 for 40 this year. So he's going to have 30 steals and 40 attempts. I'll say 30 for 35. I think he'll break 30 steals, and I think he'll break 30 home runs. For the record, he already does have a 30-30 season. That was 2018. I think he'll have a 30-30 season.
I just wonder if, like I said, if they're going to not give him the green light as much. Just because, a lot of those plays at second base end up with someone sliding head first. And the risk of a thumb jamming is a lot higher.
It is, although the bigger bases, who knows? I don't know. And
makes it even more likely that you're going to catch your hand on the base because it's bigger.
I guess. Maybe he could swim more around it. I don't know. I think he's going to get to 30. I think he has a permanent green light. I think for a guy who had a torn ligament in his thumb and should have had surgery, he said, no, I'm not having surgery. I'm playing. And they said, okay, you're playing. I don't think you're giving that guy a stop sign. I think you're...
No, I'm not saying a stop sign, but they also probably are not going to be quite as aggressive as they might have been in the past in terms of relaying the call or pushing it. And he might run on his own, but I don't think they're going to be pushing it as much from the bullpen or from the dugout.
Well, I think later in the season, I think he'll attempt more and due to volume, due to the rules. Even if they do put if they try to tell him to take it easy, I still think he'll run more just because of the rules. It'll make it a lot.
I'd also be curious about where his speed's at. He's such a smart runner that he always gets an extra base. But just as a player moves into their 30s, you wonder if there will be any just natural. I'm going to open myself up to hate for saying this, but it's like there might be a little bit of slowdown just as a player enters their 30s.
But it's not like he's never posted elite sprint speed rates. Like it's not like we're talking about a guy who has ever been like a blazing runner. He is a good base runner because he's smart and he's got just enough speed. Like I think you look at his sprint speed numbers, they've been pretty.
I mean, he's like in terms of his intelligence, he's definitely one of the most intelligent. He's always like getting that extra base, doing all of those things. He's always like he's like 99th percentile for that.
All right,
his sprint speed was 81 last year, and I think it was 77 the year before.
So it's gotten better, Jeff. It's gotten better.
It doesn't always get better though. Like that's not typical.
But it went from in 2021. It got okay.
So he's been in the 70s, high 70s. Last year was a higher sprint speed, but again,
if you go back to 2016, it was lower. Last year was his highest sprint speed ever, Jeff.
It was, but I mean, there is like
that's not normal though. That's not normal.
But that's what I'm saying. You could see a bit of
okay.
Especially if he didn't necessarily get to do the full off season that he's used to doing because of.
It doesn't include running though.
But I mean, he could still do leg work, but you never know how that disrupts things. I'm not saying this is a hater. I'm just saying there's a multitude of reasons why. Like, I'm not shocked if he gets to 30, but I also think there's a few reasons, mostly thumb related than anything else, that might weirdly pull him back. Just in terms of like, it was a different off season for him. He is getting older, and then just the additional risk every time you steal a base.
Yeah, I absolutely disagree with you on this one.
That's
Shocker,
fine.
But there is no tightening the rope on this guy. He knows how to play one way. He is the new Grady Sizemore. He plays.
Don't say that. you're just gonna. This is the beginning of the injury derailment train.
Don't go there. Okay,
you just put put some dark magic on him.
I did. Maybe I did. I don't know. But this guy only plays one way. He's been playing this way since 2012, since I've seen him, and it's 100% every time.
Jose has always been Jose, even when he was in the minors and I was in the minors. Jose was Jose. Jose does things his own way.
Yeah,
and
very quickly. So Jose's a freak of nature. It's pretty simple. Ahmed Rosario, 18 steals last year, more or less this year.
He should get. I mean, I'm assuming everyone's are going to go up, but yeah, I think he.
Really? You think everybody's Andres Gimenez 20 is going to go up?
Yes, everyone should go up. Okay, pitchers can't hold you as tightly. Bases are bigger. Everyone should see an improvement. Like this should be a bonanza. Teams are going to have a hard time adjusting to it. I was kind of curious. I actually went and looked at it. Jose Ramirez's sprint speed last year was 28.5, which was the highest feet per second of his career. His low was in the COVID year at 27.2. So he has been between 27.2 and 28.5 for his entire career.
Sprint speed is not always an accurate depiction of speed, especially on the bases either, especially when you're stealing.
What's really fascinating is his time to first base was like a 4.22, which was pretty significant improvement. So for whatever reason, he got out of the box faster than he ever got out last year. He had more bolts than he's ever had. So I don't know.
But that's because, I'm not saying it's because, but remember, Terry Francona did say, like, we're going to be a team that hustles and runs, and that embodiment has to start with Jose Ramirez. Yep. It trickles down everybody else. And he busted his you-know-what last year, and I don't know. I don't think you're keeping this guy the brakes on him. I think he's going to do what he wants. I think he's going to get to 30-30 this year. I would love to see Jose or Andres get to more than 20 steals, Quinn more than 20. I'll come back with some math tomorrow and see how the Guardians are doing stolen base wise in spring training and see.
I'm betting
last year.
I'm betting they will steal 30 to 40 more bases this year than last year as a team. That's my bold prediction right now. But we'll get into some. We got some talk about what do you do about Hentges? What do you do about Hentges? But first, we're gonna talk about one of our other fantastic sponsors. And if you know me, you know I love a new and or returning sponsor. And we have a returner today. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps people find the right people for your team faster and for free. So head over to LinkedIn Jobs, add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with the right skills and experience. You can quite quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. So if you're a baseball team, you'd be looking for programming languages and knowledge of advanced statistics. Sorry, everyone who does not like that. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1, delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free on linkedinjobs.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Well, we don't know how long Sam Hentges is going to be out for. It's a week-to-week situation, and we kind of addressed this a couple episodes ago, but people wanted us to go a little more in depth on, what can happen for the Guardians as far as left-handed relief options.
Outfield on the mind.
Yeah, left-handed relief options behind Sam Hentges if he is out for an extended amount of time. My only thought really here is it's got to start with Tim Herrin, right? Like I know maybe Cleveland will be reluctant to throw a rookie in on opening day in the bullpen as a lefty, but I don't really see a better option to start the season. Like I know you'll probably say Connor Pilkington, but he's never really been a reliever, and I think they need. And I know they've got Curry and they've got Gaddis as guys who have experience as a sixth starter, and Joey Cantillo is on the 40, but I don't think they're going to necessarily turn to him early on. So I don't think they're going to go ahead and say, okay, Connor Pilkington, you are a left-handed reliever in April to start the year. I think it's going to be Tim Herrin to start the year in the bullpen. I don't think he has done anything in camp to say he can't be. I think they'll evaluate their options throughout the year, but I think the first job starts with Tim Herrin, and we're going to go through some other options throughout the year, or that we're going to talk about, but I don't see any way that Tim Herrin, there's another option, unless they trade for somebody, unless they sign somebody, or they make a different move in house. I don't see any way it's not Tim Herrin as first up for this spot.
It's kind of funny, just because, going to MLB Trade Rumors when it happened, which is a site I do enjoy checking out. But they talked about, who are the options externally. And their list was Brad Hand, Will Smith, and Zach Britton. Now, Brad Hand had a very Brad Handian season last year. And Will Smith was actually great once he got to Houston. And Zach Britton has just been hurt basically consistently since 2020. But what was funny was, like, we talked about how we were going to discuss it. Then we ran out of time last week. And promptly Saturday morning, Brad Hand and Will Smith signed. So, like, if you wanted to go out and get someone, the market is even smaller. And I'd have to go and look, but I mean, Brad Hand didn't get that much less than Andrew Chafin got. Like, they were pretty close. And I know people will talk about, oh, they missed out there.
Didn't I say Andrew Chafin?
Yes, but like at the same
time,
that
was before the Hentges injury.
Yeah, but it's still kind of, if you look at where this team was heading into camp, it's great to have depth. Don't get me wrong, but like, there wasn't necessarily a need. Like, one could argue this is still their greatest depth point is the bullpen in general. It's like Hentges and Morris were lining up to be part of it. Now they're down to, and it does make sense to go with Herrin.
Oh, no, I lost Jeff on my end. I hope he's still there on the other end.
Am I back,
Jeff? Yeah, sure.
So back. It's like, yeah, I was saying, you were talking about Herrin. I'll argue against the idea that, Pilkington hasn't done it with, like, Sam Hentges really hadn't done it. Like, he had done it very little before he came in last year into spring, and they put him in that role. If they wanted to put him in that role and try it, maybe you could see that work. And then, like, you have Gaddis and Curry as your 6-7 guys. It's hard to find anyone you're going to add there. Like, who are you going to let go to get a lefty? And it's that same problem that we've seen all off season, where I don't even think the money was the reason they didn't get Chafin. I think the reason they didn't chase any of these relievers was the 40-man and just not wanting to cut anyone loose. And, I think they did a smart trade with Will Benson because they were in an untenable situation, and they gave up potential ceiling for more. They gave up a higher floor. I don't even know if I'd say that Benson's there. They gave up, ceiling and certainty for a little bit of breathing room, right? Then they immediately filled it with Jason Billis, and we'll have to see. Maybe they run with without a lefty. That seems like something they wouldn't do. So it's like, it does feel like, hey, Tim Herrin, here's your spot. I thought he had a chance to make the team just because I thought Tito might like two lefties. I know it wasn't great numbers in AAA for him last year, but nobody had great numbers in AAA, so don't get suckered in by those. But the other problem, too, on top of this is when you look at where they are, when you look at Sam Hentges being hurt, the underrated aspect of this is, like, who could have been that extra guy? It might have been Andrew Misiasic if he wasn't hurt. He is that lefty who has been really effective in double. He was the rare guy who went from AA to AAA and didn't miss a beat. His stuff shouldn't work, yet it does. Like, I would love to see what his spin data is. He seems like one of those players who just seems to perform every single time, and he might have been that guy. But now they are down him as well, and they don't really have a great option. So yeah, I agree. I think it's probably Tim Herrin all the way. I do think Pilkington could play up as a reliever a la Hentges, but I don't think the Guardians are I think I'm alone in that thought. I don't think they agree with me. I think they're set with him as a starter. So yeah, there really isn't too much there. And like I said, I think adding a reliever I think that was just because they're so up against it. They need to make another Will Benson or two trade. They need to figure out what they're going to do with Palacios. They need to figure out what they're going to do with Rocchio and Tina and Martinez. They have too many infielders right now. And I know a lot of people got mad at last week's show when we said, hey, it seems like they like Ahmed. Would they consider extending him? I'm like, people took that as us saying we would extend him. I don't know what I would do with them in that situation. I've been accused of being like a big Ahmed hater all my life. So it's kind of funny when it's like people think that I'm saying sign him. But like they have too many infielders on the roster. And that's not even talking about Gabby and Freeman. And they essentially need to figure something out. Like, I am all for trying to figure out a team that's got a comp B pick and flipping Tana for that, or trying to do something like that to help alleviate, because they need some more breathing room, because I mean, that's why they don't have lefty depth.
Yeah. I mean, Caleb Bargar is on the roster. He's gotten a lot of time. There's Philip Deal. There's other guys who have been in the spring roster that have gotten playing time. I just don't see adding them. I don't see how it really helps them. It would have been Missy Isaac. So I don't know. As Caleb Simpson is a righty, I think. So not worrying about him. As far as the lefty goes, I mean, I would agree with you. Pilkington would be an interesting option. I wouldn't be against it personally, but I think for right now, for their needs, they need to keep him stretched out as a starter. That's my only hesitation here, unfortunately. I mean, it's going to be him. I don't think Cantillo early on is going to be an option. Maybe later in the year.
Agreed.
Maybe later in the year, it's too soon for them to turn Doug Nikhazy into a bullpen option. They won't do it, even if he struggles this year. I think we're still a ways down the road for that.
And they don't even have to add him for a while. Like,
right. So that's just not happening. So yeah, I think right now it's Herrin. I don't think any of the guys on minor league deals that have come into camp have earned their way on the roster yet. Maybe we'll see. Maybe they'll do it for now to have someone, to create roster fodder later on, just to have him on there. And it depends on how serious the Hentges situation is. Like, look, if Hentges has to go on the 60-day IL, maybe Berger or Deal gets on the roster and they see how it goes, and gives them roster fodder for later to move around. I think they have to DFA Jason Billis if they're going to get another lefty on the roster somehow. Like I said, I just wish even before the injury they would have signed another lefty, whether it was Chafin or in bringing Zach Britton into minor league camp on a minor league roster. Maybe they still can, but they definitely, the options aren't good early on. Throughout the year, it could get better, but I think the hope is that Hentges heals quickly because, the options aren't good. He was a big part of the bullpen, but I still think Tim Herrin at some point this year will play a huge role for them.
Yeah. I think for no other reason than they don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny to go look at the minors. We don't have time to really dig in. It's like Adam Scott might be the next lefty up in terms of guys who are in AAA.
Boy, he's bad now. I feel bad for Adam Scott. He was on my radar a year ago. Yeah, same here. And he just wasn't good last year.
It just wasn't good last. He had a bait and field type of situation year. But yeah, it's going to be something to watch. We will get into this situation more as camp unfolds, as we get a chance to see more, as we get more news. We want to thank you for listening, rating and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Check out every show, get a friend to watch and listen, and go Guardians, go.